These are two official €0 banknotes. I bought the first one as a thought experiment for about €3.95. Why, you might ask, and you wouldn't be the first. Most people raised an eyebrow on this as it seemed like a waste of money to convert actual currency into a seemingly officially worthless banknote. Now we'll get back to that. First, let me explain a bit more on why I started paying attention to the monetary system. For that, we have to go back in time, to a year most of you people don't like to revisit.
WHO has been assessing this outbreak around the clock, and we're deeply concerned both by the alarming levels of spread and severity and by the alarming levels of inaction. We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
So it is halfway March 2020. The COVID pandemic had finally been declared by the World Health Organization, and the global markets collapsed. As some of you might remember, something happened that, frankly, I couldn't wrap my head around. Something that had never happened before. The oil prices went negative.
Today was oil Armageddon. Today, oil opened up at $17.70 and crashed by $53.47 at this point to minus $35.20. It even gets worse. This is a chart of the intraday trading, and you can see it opened at $17.73, and it traded as low as $40.32 a barrel. They're paying more than 80 cents per gallon for somebody to take this oil away. The seller, the producers, are paying $40.32 to have the buyer take it from them.
I just couldn't understand how something like this could happen. What does a negative market price mean exactly? Does that mean you get money to obtain oil instead of paying for it? This was a turning point for me. The emotional moment of realizing the system felt unreal. From that moment on, I invested my time in my financial education. My motivation was understanding, not getting rich. So, back to my thought experiment. Somewhere around this time, I saw an ad on the internet of the official €0 Rembrandt banknote that was issued for that year. The timing was eerily perfect to not see this as an impulsive purchase, but as an experiment to myself. I wanted that banknote because most people's first reaction was of dissonance, mockery. Why would you spend actual money, waste actual money on a banknote that clearly states that it has no value? By official numbers, a €5 banknote has lost about 30% of its purchasing power since 2020. In lived reality, for many people, it feels much closer to half. So let that sink in for a moment. Actual money lost nearly half its value since then, while the value of my €0 note has actually doubled. I can sell it for more than double the price I bought it for. So this really made me think. The monetary system at this point really felt a bit like the upside down. Things reward the opposite of intuition. Anyone who would have had the space to store hundreds of gallons of oil in March 2020 could get money and the commodity itself. Win-win. You get something you want to purchase, not for free, but you get money to take it, to store it somewhere. Anyone who would have bought a banknote which clearly states it has zero value could actually pretty soon sell this note for profit. The financial world was upside down, is still. I started to learn that the economy and markets are collective belief systems. Real value, however, is rooted in scarcity, trust, and time. What paying attention means. At this point, back in 2020, I was already more aware of how much money was being printed for boosting the economy during COVID. I dedicated a lot of my time to at least try and understand our incomprehensible and complex monetary system. I knew that extreme inflation was looming around the corner. I wanted to make sure that whatever terrible decisions taken by the people in power, I could prepare at least somewhat for what was coming. Being aware of world events and the central bank's unforgivable curses put on our money supply was already forming a solid basis for what would eventually become my approach and strategy to investing. But most of all, defending myself against the dark arts. Dark arts being, of course, inflation and taxation. And worst case, a full-on economic crisis. Paying attention is not day trading, prediction worship, or chart obsession. Paying attention is watching where value flows, understanding incentives, and noticing slow or accelerated erosion. So, what did I learn? To begin with, money is not neutral. It is a collective spell people decide to keep casting, despite its value eroding away by the day. Doing nothing is still a decision. I'm not here to tell you to invest or what to do. I'm just sharing my experiences and observations that led to my quest to become more financially savvy. Inflation works quietly. Exponential growth is a quiet killer at first, that only at the end, when it's too late, escalates explosively. Assets behave differently from cash. Cash, which most people call money, actually isn't money. Since America got off the gold standard in 1971, the value of the dollar is based on nothing. A wise man once said, "It's not money, don't call it money. It's currency," debasing fiat currency. One of the people who really helped me understand inflation early on was MacLeod, not because he has all the answers, but because his work gave me a language to start asking better questions. So why fortune telling? Humans have always tried to read the future. This is especially apparent in finance. Markets pretend to be rational but behave emotionally. There's a meme about this that calls technical analysis astrology for men, which I think is pretty spot on. Not because charts are meaningless, but because prediction itself is always uncertain. What we can do, however, is pay attention to world events, to incentives, to overheated and speculative phenomena, and protect what we value. I started this channel as a way to give shape to my own learning and to share the questions that kept pulling me deeper. If you're curious too about money, value, or how to protect what matters to you in an uncertain world, you're welcome to walk along with me. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to fortune telling with Julia, and just to be clear, this is not investment advice. This channel exists as a shared act of attention. We reflect on current and past events, and sometimes we look into the crystal ball without certainty. No prophecy, just awareness. But if you do like a small glance into the future, in my upcoming episodes I'll be exploring topics like inflation, precious metals, Bitcoin and crypto, the stock market, art, all of that kind of stuff. So if any of those resonate with your own quest, you're welcome to stay. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode. And remember, I'm not a fortune teller, I'm just sharing my own quest for fortune.